And welcome back to the group.
Hi, Venerable Tendron.
Hi, Margaret. So how are we doing?
Doing well.
Are you sure?
Well enough.
Well enough. I think it's really important to try to get in touch with that soft spot at our heart. You know, the spot that responds with compassion or kindness, with gentleness. And remember that it's always there. You know, and the more we can practice remembering we have these qualities, these skills, then the more available they are to us when we're faced with something that, you know, tends to be a trigger for our less attractive qualities. You know, and then we can, the more available through our awareness we are, you know, of these good qualities, the more likely we will respond from that place as opposed to impatience or fear or whatever it is, or judgment, which is usually fear, you know. So anyway, is it nap time?
12:30 is nap time for you, Venerable Tendron.
So, all right.
Hi, Tendron.
Hi, Francesca.
So I really liked using that that spot right on the heart, and that was the first time I ever heard that. And really going to try to remember to use that during the day when I need it. You know, something to kind of draw off of. You know, as far as keeping in mind your Buddha nature, it was beautiful. Thank you.
And I think it's such a it's like, you know, it is easy to lose sight of it, you know, and not realize. I love, you know, it really is our source of happiness. You know, positive actions of body, speech, and mind are the cause of happiness. That those good qualities are the cause of our happiness. So the more we can draw from them, the more that we can remember that they're there, you know, the more that we can pause for a moment and go there first, you know, then and it comes from these abilities to develop this habit of pausing, stepping back, pausing, remembering there's a choice in how you respond. But it really helps to keep reminding ourselves that we have the basis for kindness, compassion, you know, gentleness, patience, all these things, you know, we forget. We tell ourselves rather often that we don't have them, you know, that we're judgmental and mean-spirited and blah, 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 you know, whatever, you know, we don't give ourselves, we don't fuel our confidence in these capacities that we have. So, at least in the West, we seem to do that. So,
Thank you.
So while we're thinking of that, let's recite the 4 immeasurables, just for good measure. So, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So, we've been talking about perspective and humility, and as part of the qualities that help us connect to joy. Perspective allows us that stepping back so that we don't get hooked as if whatever thing that's happening is all about us. It helps us to step back and go, oh, not so bad, or no big deal kind of thing. And it can even help in those moments where like we're being praised and we need to step back and not go to pride, not go to arrogance, but to be able to step back and just enjoy, let it build our confidence in our skills, but not turn into poison with it being, ha, 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 I'm better than everybody else. But, so working on humility is important. And then the next one that's brought up by His Holiness and Archbishop Desmond Tutu is humor. Humor. So, I'm going to see if I can figure out how to share a portion of the screen. Now, what do y'all see? Somebody has to unmute.
The 8 pillars of joy. Humor.
Okay. And what else do you see?
It is
Anything?
much better when there is not too much seriousness, the Dalai Lama said. And it goes on.
Okay, but do you see anything else on the screen? Any
Yes,
other windows? Huh?
No. We can see the pictures of the other students, Venerable.
Okay, just curious. Know what you can see. Now, are they controlled by me? Like I just changed the view.
Yeah, you just like select what window you want to display, or you can display your whole desktop at once, but I'm pretty sure you selected the correct window you wanted to display.
Okay. I'm just, like some people manage to get this screen that you can split. Like the recipient of the screen can shrink part of the screen and enlarge another part. I haven't figured out how to do that. Anyway.
Yeah,
okay.
we can do that. We manipulate our own screens, while we
Okay,
can choose to hide everything or,
Okay. So you can't do it when you're sharing your screen. I mean,
No, you can do it. I think the way they did it is that you share just your desktop and then you manipulate the windows the way you want.
I don't know. Anyway.
The desktop's at the top left. When you click share screen, the desktop.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So, okay. All right. Maybe that's it. Anyway, I selected a portion of the screen. So here you go. So, His Holiness, it's much better when there's not too much seriousness. Now, this is coming from someone who was a leader of his nation, both the religious leader and the head of state. This is someone who had to go into exile. Millions of his countrymen were killed. And this is his perspective. So humor and humility share the same root, as do humanity. Isn't that interesting? I find this all very interesting. The lowly and sustaining earth is the source of all three words. Archbishop Desmond Tutu brings up a moment at, at funerals during, these terrible times. And what does he says, my weaponry, if you can call it that, was almost always to use humor, and especially self-denigrating humor, where you're laughing at yourself. And this was to help diffuse the anger that was always present at these gatherings. And these are funerals because they weren't allowed to gather in any other way.
Like Tibetans weren't allowed to gather in any other way, or?
This is in Africa, but yes, and same is true in any society that oppresses others. And of course, the group that's oppressed usually changes. The movements of the oppressed group are very restricted. They're watched. And in times of, this is why we have curfews right now in some cities. So it's a method of trying to diffuse things, but also it's a method to try to shut voices down. But of course, again, here's a leader who's choosing to use humor as a way of keeping things from exploding, because exploding doesn't help. It just causes more harm. I'm using these examples because I think they illustrate just how amazing it is that even in really, really tense situations, people like His Holiness choose humor. So I think I mentioned this last week. His Holiness was invited to attend a meeting in Belfast where both victims and perpetrators were present. The atmosphere was very tense. A former Protestant militant spoke of how he was told by other loyalists that what they did in opposition to the Catholics was justified because Jesus was a Protestant and not a Catholic. Knowing that Jesus was a Jew, the Dalai Lama laughed so hard that he completely changed the atmosphere. Able to laugh at the absurdity of our prejudices and hatreds, everyone was able to communicate more honestly and compassionately with each other. For this to be effective, what do you think has to be present? What kind of energy had to be present in His Holiness for this to result in laughter and actually, change the energy of the situation?
Compassion.
Background knowledge into a different religion.
Well, knowledge about a different religion. What, someone else was also said something?
No, I just said compassion.
Compassion.
Loving kindness.
Loving kindness.
Joy has her hand up. Go ahead, Joy.
Nope.
Oh.
Okay.
It sounded.
Yeah, Graciela.
It's. Oh, go ahead. Oh, Frank. It sounded to me like he was mocking him a little bit, though. by saying that? Like,
Now that's your words, right?
yeah, like I thought maybe it was kind of, making him look stupid, like that he didn't, he would say such a thing and sort of laughing at the guy. But it worked, obviously.
See, and that's what I'm asking for. Why would this work?
I was thinking that exactly, that it would be really hard, that there's some special quality that the Dalai Lama conveyed that
And that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Humility.
Humility. Humility really helps. Humility conveys this sense, I don't think I'm better than you guys. I don't think that, it is this understanding that when we're caught in our disturbing emotions, it's unlikely that this person talking didn't know that Jesus was a Jew. It's just the way we misspeak. When we're, holding tightly to our view and in anger, we make mistakes that come from this grasping. But His Holiness, for this kind of thing to be effective, I really think you have to be, first of all, really not seeing yourself as separate from, as better than, that having the answers. Of seeing the people in the room, all sides, as friends. Of knowing that he also has this shared political history that is devastating. He was in exile. He's still in exile.
I think he saw the absurdity of the labeling that was going on.
Absolutely. Okay.
Is it a video that you were referring to, Venerable Tendron?
No, it's a book.
Oh, I see. So, okay. Is there in the Book of Joy?
Yeah.
Is there a page?
Yes, it's 219.
All right, thank you.
Venerable. So
Yeah.
when people on the arena today, the political arena, there's each side now, especially with the election coming, people are lying. They think this side is lying, that side is lying.
So they're not lying. They're speaking their truth, what they think is true. And they're accusing others of lying.
Right. So the humility there.
I'm sorry?
To bring humility and humor. I laugh. I just laugh when I hear them, the difference.
Now that might be laughing at others, because the whole manner in which referring to them as them speaks to this feeling of separation. That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to be aware of this. And this is part of what humility and perspective and humor can bring with us, is these moments where we can really see ourselves there, where we really, I'll show you a good example, because I think it's a good example. Maybe it's not. Where is it? I always have to search. Because I don't remember where I put anything. Oh, there it is. Yep.
I think maybe the Dalai Lama did experience those feelings at some point of being very attached to his people and his situation, was able to set that aside, to let go of all of that.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
So now what do you see on the screen? A slide and you guys. Okay. All right. During the anti-apartheid era, the Archbishop was approached by the flight attendant who asked for an autograph on behalf of another passenger. I tried to look humble and modest, although I was thinking in my heart there were some people who recognized a good thing when they saw it. When she handed him the book and he took out his pen, she said, "You are Bishop Muzara, aren't you?" Now we can interpret these things when they happen to us, when we're caught out. When our pride is present and we're caught out and it turns out it was misplaced, we can turn that into a very ugly conversation in our minds with ourselves. I don't know about you. I know that I have. Who do I think I am? I really then trash myself. But the other choice could be to find it hilarious. But it takes humility to do that, because pride is the obstacle to that. It takes this humility of knowing that you don't get it right, and that's okay. It's this humility of knowing that you're not a Buddha yet. And that's okay. So these traits are not separate. Being able to have some perspective, have some humility, is not separate from also being able to laugh at ourselves. And laugh at ourselves without sarcasm, which really isn't laughing, without that teasing aspect that is really, digging, the knife in, but is truly amused by our foibles and our fallibility and our habits of things like holding ourselves up. It doesn't serve any purpose, but being able to, accept the perspective like, oops, got that wrong. So being able to laugh at ourselves is a skill. You know, not everybody can do it, and most of us can't do it all the time. Most of us have situations where, you know, sort of like, it's not funny. It's serious, you know, where we really feel like, you know, it's not a time for humor. But we start with those areas where, you know, where it's a little easier for us. And then we stretch into those that not so much, you know. So can you see how perhaps a cultivation of humility can help with this, with a more relaxed perspective on oneself? Or not?
Oh yes, and it's funny how all these words, humility, humor, human, all have the same base, like he was talking about earlier. I mean, how does that happen?
The person who writes the words or creates the words had a sense of humor. So. But we have expressions that basically imply that when people can't laugh at themselves, that they need to get off their high horse and get down to earth. They need to be, you know, we have this idea that, you know, that there's a quality of arrogance, you know, and I mean arrogance because I mean that need to feel superior to others, you know, is not grounded.
Bobby has his hand up, Venerable Tendron.
Okay. Oops, you've muted yourself again, or someone muted you. There we go.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Sorry for being late. Pretty much answered some of the questions I had while my hand was up. And what I was thinking was being aware of the other person that we might be joking with or having humor with. Specifically, if I were in my martial arts gym and one of the guys came in, wasn't training for a while, I guess, hey, put on a few pounds. But I couldn't say that to a whole bunch of, you know, maybe, you know, my daughters or someone else. That would not be taken well at all. So sort of knowing what, it's almost like what might be politically correct or individually correct.
Yeah, I would say it's more about really connecting with the shared humanity of someone else.
Right, I hear you. I think I understand part of it. So it's kind of knowing how perhaps maybe sensitive the other person is or isn't, or thick-skinned.
Or whether or not it's any of your business.
I'm sorry?
Of whether or not it's any of your business. You know, so in the context of practicing martial arts and staying fit, you know, there's a shared effort, you know, perhaps, you know, so that, you know, if it, you know, you can tease someone about having put on a few pounds. Whereas in a different context, it would be totally like, and what's it to you?
Yeah.
You know, it's that common ground that we have to establish, you know, and that's what I mean by His Holiness being able to, if, you know, if we bring an attitude with us of, I don't feel I'm better than anybody in this room. I feel like everybody in this room is a friend or could be a friend, you know, that I'm just as human as anybody else, that, you know, I have the same needs you do. I have the same fears you do. I have the same whatever you do, you know, that by itself can create an energy where you're much more relaxed about hearing whatever they have to say, because you feel safe.
I see. I think for me, you summed up something when you said start out small or start out with little things, because even if my intentions were kind or really meant to have humor, if the other person wasn't there and I said to someone, hey, you put on a few pounds, we might be in two different camps, so to speak. So,
Yep.
yeah,
And that's one of the things we want to look at is, when is our teasing mean? You know, because often teasing has an element where you're taking something that you see as fact, you know, and you're making light of it by using a teasing manner. But what you're really doing is pointing out in some way how someone has failed.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, so we really have to check up our own intention. What are we really doing?
Yes, I need much practice in that area. I grew up bilingual. My second language was sarcasm.
Yeah, yeah. You have company there. You know, I could say fine company, because I certainly was in that camp. That's the only thing I was bilingual with. So, not a good quality. Oh.
I was something completely, sorry, I don't know who was. I was thinking about something completely silly, because I was thinking, who do I feel is that humble? And I was thinking the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa or Desmond Tutu. And I was thinking, well, they're karma, because they're very average people also when it comes to being the physical part. So they don't come as this buff, tall person, right? That immediately other people judge as being superior. And I don't know if that, I mean, again, it could be their karma, because they're very average people, in my eyes, of course.
Well, and you're also looking at the superficial, you know, external physical part. So if people, you know, are talking about, you know, the troubles of Northern Ireland, you know, they may not care what you look like. You know, so it is, you know, so this is one of the things to look at ourselves when we are being judgmental, you know, we meet someone new or we're going to a party or whatever, to really look at what are our priorities here? Well, and who are the people we trust? Who are we really comfortable in the company of, and why? You know, and then try to draw from our qualities, our good qualities, those same capacities, and draw, you know, and come from that place, as opposed to some, you know, wherever we started from, you know, to really be able to let go. And this takes practice, you know, so it's, you know, who knows what it was like when His Holiness was 16, you know, and had all, you know, before he was in exile, and there was all this pomp and circumstance to his, you know, everything, to his clothing, to his, you know, everything. So but it's, you know, it's like, in what way is His Holiness average? You know, that's, you know, and then we have to really look at, you know, because it is interesting, because one of the causes for being attractive or appealing is things like patience, qualities like patience. Well, when you look at His Holiness, he's an example of someone who is very appealing to people. You know, people really like to be in his company. So his appealing, you know, the appealing nature of His Holiness has nothing to do with physical appearance. You know, and so in that sense, you know, that's how karma can work, is that you're appealing in spite of not fitting whatever the superficial cultural norms are. You know, the kind of people that, you you turn to look at because their physical appearance either is appealing or unappealing to you.
One of the things that occurred to me is that in this non-dual universe, and Buddhism stresses, the interdependence that we have on each other, that everything on this planet is interdependent, and that can bring us down a notch or two.
Yes.
With, thinking about humility, that we need each other, we need the insects, we need animals.
Yeah, exactly. So if we want to, but, and so then we, it's like also being able to understand that there is a benefit to being humble. A lot of, there's a lot of fear around humility, I believe. That somehow it's it sets you up in some way. That's negative. Because we have a society that really encourages people to I don't know. I'm not even going to go there because because it's ridiculous. So anyway, so humor. The humor that is recommended by His Holiness and Archbishop Desmond Tutu is self-deprecating. It's being able to laugh at yourself, being able to see your own limitations and be amused by it. So it's not really, it's understanding, that we think who was it that was saying, I think it was Rebecca, was telling a story about Venerable Rubina saying that she, was feeling, compassionate for everyone, but then, then they thought, oh, but is Tanzania or whatever, what was it? Tasmania in trouble, So it's, when we recognize that our grasping at putting someone, whether it's ourselves or some other group or person, above others, and then having to really step back using our perspective, our ability to pause, and then realize, oh, well, they're just, everybody's just people too, or animals too, or just living beings, and that everybody's suffering. When can that help? When can it help to think about everybody suffering?
When we're suffering.
How does it help?
I think, I'm not really sure, but like the inverse, like when I think people are like perfect, it really upsets me. Yeah.
Because you're not, I bet.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a little bit, this is where humility helps us, is being able to understand that even someone who appears perfect isn't. Not because they're bad, but because, we put too much power into the idea that someone does something perfectly or someone doesn't. We really, and we talked a little bit about this last week, about this idea that we feel like we have to deserve things. So we have to be perfect to be worthwhile. People who make mistakes, are not as worthy. And then we take it to extremes, don't we? People who, you know, who are not worthy and are in prison, you know, are even less deserving, you know, and we just, you know, people who, you know, it's whatever your prejudices are, you know. If we think that if you haven't been able in this land of opportunity here that we call America, haven't been able to get a good job, take care of your family, you know, whether you know, emergencies, financial emergencies, you know, blah, 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 then somehow, you know, you're not deserving. You know, we have all sorts of bias in, you know, and we need to be aware of them in ourselves and use humility to remind us that we're not good at everything. And if we have an understanding of karma, then we can understand is they're just having the, you know, the results ripen from actions from long ago. So judging people by external events, our own or others, from the Buddhist perspective, is short-sighted.
Bobby has his hand raised, Venerable Tendron.
There you are, Bobby, go ahead.
What I'm hearing, and I think I'm understanding, the biggest challenge for me has been separating the person and also their behaviors. The person has the same worth even if they were, whatever, stealing, hurting someone else, not to, and I think that's a knee-jerk reaction, or that's the most common reaction for, I'd say the majority of people, is to judge people by their behaviors, especially when they're horrendous behaviors.
Well, and this is what this is trying to help us learn how to do, is recognize we don't just do it to others, we do it to ourselves, don't we? And so we're on this roller coaster all the time, emotionally, feeling good about ourselves, feeling bad about ourselves, because we are doing exactly that. We're judging our worth by results, you know. And so we really want to question the wisdom of that strategy. And one of our fears, I think, of humility is this fear that somehow it is declaring that others are better than me. I mean, does anybody have that fear, or am I just making that up? And are others better than you?
I mean,
So-
they're better at lots of stuff.
They are what? Better at lots of
They're
stuff?
better at a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people a lot better, you know, at like programming. And
Yep.
Yep.
Does that have the same meaning as having people, that there are people who are better than you? No, and
No,
we really want to, you know, recognize when we're equating the two. Because then we have to grasp after pride. I mean, this is the problem. And whether we end up in the low self-esteem part of the continuum or the arrogant end of the continuum. Whereas humility is a quality that is just about understanding that sometimes others know more than me. So when I'm the one who's in the position of being better at something than someone else, to not be arrogant about it. to be confident, but not diminish the other person because you know more. To really be able to understand that we all know some things and we all don't know more. The reality is there's more that we don't know than that we do know.
Tendron, emotional intelligence, like in forgiveness for yourself.
That's another
like,
pillar. Yep.
So like in your past, you know, to be able to like, you know, work through forgiveness practices. And
that's another pillar. We'll get to that.
Okay. Because I
But
was
this
wondering.
this is the part that I'm talking about when I say really connecting with others. That part of humility and part of perspective and humor is this ability to respond to our limitations or to our difficulties or whatever's going on with a sense of, oh my goodness, I can see how I got here. Instead of, oh, what an idiot I am. And then from that place, have compassion for others, for where they are, have humility for others who know more than us in that moment, or just have the humility of, I don't know. Without it becoming, you know, some harsh criticism of ourselves, or even a conclusion about ourselves. And that can help with humor. So the more that we can accept ourselves with grace, sort of like what Francesca is saying, you know, this ability to look at ourselves through a lens of kindness and humor and humility and perspective, even though we think we're the center of the universe. And, you know, everything indicates that we are. I just think it's so funny. We live on a globe. So everybody can be considered the center of everything. It's just so wild. No, you know, do you think that's a karmic result? So, that we created the cause to live in a place that's round because we grasp at the self so strongly. So anyway, I'm easily amused. But it's just, we want to be able to make a distinction between the humor that is an honest amusement without any of this, you know, sarcasm or, you know, like this method for showing someone's flaws, you know, or our perception of their flaws, you know, but just being amused because we're all trying to be happy and we don't know what we're doing. You know. And the more we can just relax into that, when we think about our day, you know, the less of a big deal everything becomes. Yes, Barry.
One of the things that comes up for me when working through humility and finding people who are better than me and not having judgment and saying that I found that, you'll find people who want to compete with you more to try to either bring you down to a certain level. And I found for myself, when I started on this journey, that trying to learn something new, or doing different journeys that maybe I stopped at, that when I ran into somebody who was that much more knowledgeable, not about looking at them as an adversary, somehow that happens in our competitive brain, but to actually look at them as teachers and to understand how come and why they are where they are, and learn from them.
And that takes humility. It's just recognizing, oh, I don't know as much here, but here's someone who does. So yes, it's all about training the mind to respond in a different way, reframing things in our own mind, because it's not that our brain is competitive, it's that we train it to be competitive. It's not like the brain just says, it sends out little electrical impulses that say you must compete with, it's not true. The reality is cooperation keeps us alive, so it's just, we carry these myths with us, and then we, by accepting them without reason, we reinforce them again and again and again. So it is, yes, Mary.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to. I totally agree with you. I would definitely say the competitive aspect, and learning how to do that was from my father. That was an imprinted behavior and the way to go about things. And
that's probably why you were born there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this is the thing. So it's not an accident that we were raised in families that seem to just match so perfectly with our dysfunctions. It's the result of karma. So anyway, but being able to relax and understand, it says nothing about our worth or our, whether we deserve happiness. It's just this samsaric boat we're all in. And we can make it heavier and heavier till it sinks. Or we can, treat it more lightly, not take every moment so critically, have some humor about it, and perspective.
Joy has a question, Venerable Tendron.
Yes, please.
I'm unmuted, right?
Yes.
What I noticed is when you tell people that you're not going to excel in something, because, I do a lot of sports, and I say, I'm not going to get real better. And they say, oh, you'll get better after you learn how to do it for a while. But I don't. And when you express that you're not going to get better, this is where you're at, you're not here to compete, they get really, they won't accept it. People do
and so
not.
we just have to have compassion for them. This is the thing. As opposed to worrying about how we can change someone else's attitude, we just try to draw from that well of compassion or kindness or gentleness, we don't have to change their point of view. We can be confident in our own, and we don't have to defend it either. We can just recognize, that sometimes we can just recognize the suffering in someone's habit, because we do have limitations. It is true. There's some activities we'll try to learn and we won't succeed. You know? My piano teacher told my mother that, you know, maybe it's not worth the money. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, of course, you know, I mean, there were so many things like that for me. But it's just, you know, and I was smart. It's not a, you know, it's just, you know, everybody's smart about something. We all have skills, we all contribute. And this idea that somehow, you know, we have to be good at this to be worthwhile. Yeah, Graciela. You're still muted.
As an educator, I have a thing about, or even, you know, as in what we're learning, of putting limitations on ourselves. I know that there are some real limitations. I'm not questioning that, but we don't know if we say, if we say, I'm not going to get better or I'm not going to get well. In fact, we're not going to do that because our minds are going to limit us that way.
Maybe.
So we don't know, right? We don't know, and we can keep our minds open. And I think about this, I guess, all of our learnings, and in particular children, you know, that we don't.
Yeah, I mean, sure, of course, we don't know the limitations of children yet.
Yeah.
But still, children can't fly a plane for you. You know, I mean, it's understanding. It's not about, you know, this is the trouble. We don't teach how to be realistic about ourselves. You know, it doesn't mean, I mean, Buddha's potential says we could all be a Buddha.
Exactly.
And in fact, because of karma, we could become enlightened in this very life if we remove the obstacles to it. We don't know. The Tibetan teachers really, you know, get on you if you say, oh, well, I'm not in this life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that, you know. So, and that's because we don't know what work we've done in previous lives. And we shortchange everybody. We don't have any idea. And it really doesn't matter. Because until we cultivate our Buddha potential, till we remove our ignorance, till we try to develop, you know, great compassion, great love, where we don't see differences between each other in terms of worth, you know, that everyone is equally deserving of compassion when they suffer, even when they're creating their own suffering. It's just like, yeah, we might know that, gee, you know, if you just change that, you might feel better. You know,
maybe that's what Joy's friends are doing for her, showing her compassion.
Perhaps. We don't have to worry about it. We can't read their minds.
I'm just thinking.
We don't have to create a story. We don't, you know, this is our habit, is constantly trying to explain things where we don't have enough information. You know?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Marianne.
I have the perfect retort for Joy. And old Al-Anon's slogan is, you know, you might be right. And that shuts people up for whatever reason. They like that. They're happy with that. And then the conversation's ended.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
So, but I also feel that people can't accept. I think it's competition is embedded in us in everything. It's like people just can't accept.
Let's not worry about people.
Okay.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we respond to things because of our perspective. Whatever we bring to it, we bring a lot of our habits from our culture, our environment, our family, all sorts of things, you know. our belief system, but it's our perspective. And that's the perspective that if we work on, can increase our contentment and reduce our suffering. We can't change others' perspectives. Our presence can be a good condition for others. But trying to second guess or guess is, for the most part, doesn't really help us with our own perspective unless we put it there, unless we think, oh, when I do that, when I encourage someone, what's in my mind when I'm doing that? And then that might be a clue to perhaps what's going on in someone else, but it can also be a clue to going, oh, that's not very helpful. Maybe I should just listen when someone's saying blah, 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 I mean, we can use it as an opportunity to grow. Just turn the spotlight off of them and into what our interpretation says about us. Because that's what we can change. And this is sort of like by saying, oh, you might be right. It doesn't have to be a retort. It doesn't have to be a way to shut someone up. It can just be the truth. Oh, well, you might be right.
Bobby has a question, Venerable Tendron.
Okay, y'all all move around. You do know that. That's why I can never know where you are. Go ahead, Bobby.
A very good learning experience for me with the connection between humility and humor, and I guess all the 8 pillars, was the proof in the pudding. And what I mean by that, many years ago, when I went to Plum Village and I would be conversational or listen to a Dharma talk or speaking to a monk or listening to you, Venerable Tendra, is that people that are, I'll say, more aware and have a much greater practice than myself, I find the humor and I say a good example by you is, while talking mid-sentence, they'll have a giggle or a laugh, or at the end of the sentence. The humor is so apparent, and for me that coincides with the more I let go and become aware, the humor kind of sets in naturally. Thank you.
Yeah. I do think that it's interesting because I do think self-compassion, forgiveness, self-forgiveness, whatever to be self-compassionate is a lot like forgiveness. It's this idea of, ooh, because I suffer, I've done actions that have been unskillful, counterproductive, stupid, whatever. I mean, I've done them all, I've done mean actions, harmful actions, and being able to understand how that occurs, just going, oh my goodness, because I'm wounded, because and then I act out, and then, and that kind of the ability to be able to experience that understanding without it going to any place except kindness, allowing ourselves to be kind to the suffering we've experienced and the mistakes we've made because of it. And then accepting that, oh, maybe I can change these habits, and move forward. I do think a lot of these different pillars of joy have to do with this ability to look at ourselves honestly as best we can, with the limited knowledge we actually have, and be able to relax about it. It's like how we have these, I have these moments that seem to be, really life-changing moments, where something shifts in your mind. It's like you understand something in a new way. I think, and I've shared this, when I was sitting in my car after taking a statistics exam in grad school, just sobbing my heart out because, my husband was having an affair and wanted a divorce, and I was in school. And so I was going to, my income level, it was substantially reduced. I was now living in a house, the age of 42, with a bunch of, 24-year-old students, because it's all I could afford to do, and I just, I just couldn't believe that, how horrible all of this was. And I had this moment where I just went, oh, I just totally understand how I was in this boat and how my husband was in this boat. Everything that I knew about him and his history and all this, I could just totally see how he ended up here, and I certainly understood how I ended up there. And instead of responding with a feeling of hopelessness, it was just this sort of like, oh, well, okay, so this is the way it is. I need to change. I stopped crying immediately. I mean, it was just sort of like, oh, well, let go of that. It was just this feeling of just like, yeah, cause and effect. I was not a Buddhist. I hadn't met Buddhism yet, but it was just this kind of like, oh, this leads to that. So if I want things to change, I'm going to have to change. But that feeling of, okay, so this is what it is. I don't have to be, imprisoned forever and ever for the mistakes I've made. I don't have to hate myself for the mistakes I've made. Really being able to have that heartfelt compassion for suffering and how we act out of our suffering. And often it's badly. And we want to change that. But I think we spend a lot of time resisting the Four Noble Truths, that we suffer, and that the causes of our suffering are our habits of mind and the results from that. But there's a way to end it. And it's from working within. Instead of trying to change the world out here, and instead of trying to change all the people out here, to remember they're all like you. We're all like each other. We all make mistakes. We all act out of suffering. We all have the capacity for Buddhahood. So connecting with that aspect of each other. So when someone's telling us something that we think, oh, here they go again, we can just remember, that we do that all the time too. Our habit energy directs our little conversation. Oh, there I go again, judging others, da da da. So, but then just relaxing, taking that breath and stepping back mentally and thinking, no big deal. And it takes practice. So that every time you think something kind of critical of yourself or judging some outcome, you know, being able to just kind of go, okay, let it go. No big deal. Instead of reinforcing the habit of thinking, oh, my worthiness has taken another hit. You know, there's times when you just want to give your friend a hug, you know, where you can kind of just totally get where they're coming from and you just want to give them a hug. You know, be there for yourself. Give yourself a hug. You know, think of your good friend who would give you a hug if they knew it was in your mind. You know, remember, you know, that it's okay. But it does take practice. I think it really does take rehearsing, takes interrupting the ugly voices that arise in our minds, the unforgiving voices that arise in our minds, the judgmental voices, the competitive voices, the arrogant voices, all of these voices we have to interrupt them so we can train ourselves to come from that wellspring we have of compassion and kindness and patience and generosity. Instead of seeing it as us and them, that it's all them. It's all, you know, it's sort of like, hey, we are part of that. You know, whenever we criticize in our mind someone else, you know, you probably can find an instant where you were that person. Oh, it's just, there's just really, you know, I really do miss seeing you guys in person. Not that that's important, just thought I'd throw that out there. So, anyway, of course, for some of you, I wouldn't be seeing you in person. So I'm very glad for this opportunity to see you online. So, anyway, all right.
We miss seeing you too, Tendron. It's been hard. Yeah.
So we need to sort of give ourselves ways to feel supported by community, you know, when we're separated from them, from community, you know. So it's just, and one of the things that I do, because I've had to travel a lot since I've become a nun, you know, I've gone from one place to another place to another place to another place, you know, is I just really carry everybody with me. You know, I just, because I'm not good at keeping in touch. I'm terrible at keeping in touch. But I constantly speak to myself in the voices of others. You know, I remember what a teacher says, or I remember what a friend said, or I remember, you know, I mean, I just, you know, this, you know, so that I can remember that, you know, those shared moments, those connections we make with each other, we never lose them actually, because they're part of our mind. They're part of our memory. So we can draw from that to give ourselves, you know, encouragement when we need it, or give us support or compassion or loving kindness, you know, or that firm voice that says, okay, you know, you might want to not do that, you know. So, you know, we need all of it. We need coaches as well as, you know, friends. So, all right. So one of the suggestions is that to learn how to laugh at yourself, is that the next time you're in a situation where you act in a funny way or say something in a funny way or are just less than perfect, chuckle at yourself. You know, hear it and chuckle. You know, practice being lighthearted about whatever. Because we all know smiling feels good. You all spend 5 minutes a day laughing. It really can help. So, you know. So one of the practices for developing humility, for example, is to just contemplate all the things you don't know. You know, pick a subject, go, oh, I know nothing about that. And you can be amused by this. So it's like, you know, that, you know, seeing that as opposed to that, you know, it's like what Barry was saying, being able to see the opportunity of recognizing what you don't know as an opportunity to maybe explore something that's interesting to you. Or to rejoice that someone does know. You know, like I really rejoice that there are, you know, emergency room doctors. Because I could, you know, I couldn't handle that. All my knowledge would go right out the, you know, window, you know, in all the, you know, seeming chaos of an emergency. Don't have an emergency around me. I'm not very good at them. So, you know, I really rejoice that there are people who are able to do that. How lucky I am that there's someone else that's able to do that. And I have access to them if I need it. You know, this is a wonderful thing. You know, and I am so grateful I don't have to fly the plane. You know, to really think about all the things that you don't have to do because someone else knows how to, and they're doing it for you. You know? And I'm really, you know, I mean, I'm grateful that I was born a female in a society that, you know, doesn't send females to war when I was young. You know, I wouldn't want to send any of you guys to war. But I was really happy I didn't have to go at all. So that I was worried about my brother's draft number in the Vietnam War and not my own, you know. When I was young, when I was little, I went on a ski trip, snow ski trip with my family. And I flew off one little dip in the hill and went straight across and got one ski all the way into the snow and my other one on the ground, and I was still in them. So some big, strong man, I was about 10, came up, just pulled me out of the snow, picked me up and let my legs, you know, untwist and set me down. I was really grateful somebody could do that. You know, because I couldn't move a leg without breaking the other one. So it was very nice. So we need to, you know, we can look at all the things we don't know without feeling bad about not knowing. By appreciating, like I'm in awe of the way physicists can think and mathematicians can think, you know. I would love to be a physicist for a day. You know, just have that mind of a physicist for a day. I think it would help with my view of emptiness. So, you know, it's really, you know, we really can sit down and think about all the things we don't know and have it be a pleasant experience. Have it generate compassion and gratitude and, you know, and rejoicing and humor and anything.
Tendron, but not to take anything away from what we're saying, but really when it becomes difficult, it's when it's more like a coworker who knows more than you, and then you feel threatened, or I don't know, siblings who decide that or know
Well,
better.
that's why you have to practice when it's not difficult. Because if you don't practice while it's not difficult, it will always be difficult with the siblings or the, you know, we need to practice letting go of this idea that we have to be good at something in order to matter. You know, or we have to be better at something in order to earn the affection of our parents. And then we can laugh at ourselves, you know, at the age of 65 that I still think about these things. I don't even have parents. I'm now an orphan. So, you know, we have to, you know, it's this really understanding that practicing in small ways can lead to big results. Because what we're doing is trying to change a habit of mind. And if we start to develop a habit that says it's no big deal that there are other people who know more than me, then it won't be any big deal that it's your sibling or your boss or a coworker. It seems like a stretch of the imagination because we have invested this idea that it's not my habit of mind, it's that person. That we think it won't matter what I practice on because that person is the one that's causing my, you know, competitive nature to arise. You know, no, it's our habit of mind. Yeah, Bobby.
So the connection I make, I hear loud and clear, is to what we were talking about last week, the afflicted pride that would be my challenge or obstacle to admitting that that person knows more than me or is better than me. And that's, for me, when I do practice that, it's very comforting and freeing and serene.
Well, yeah.
Where
That's
I don't
the
have
good
to,
news.
Yep. When I decide, or I realize, and I do in many ways, that I'm not the know-it-all. And it's yeah, I do rejoice in it when a nephew or someone younger can show me something like, wow, never knew it. Great. It's a really good feeling. Thank you.
And it's a good counter to pride is just giving opportunities to younger people, like, you know, grandchildren, children, to teach you something and enjoy it, you know, discovering the joy in having someone show you something. So it's not always a competition, that it's an opportunity to just be present in someone else's wisdom, whatever it is, you know, even if it's building a Lego house. So it's just, so anyway, I would like, Rebecca, can you just put people in little groups just to say hello to each other?
Sure.
You know, check in with each other. Meet someone if you don't know everybody. So, all right, well, so now we want to rejoice in our efforts this morning or this afternoon or whatever it is. You know, feel good about, you know, our willingness to try to look at things from a different perspective. And when we want to, you know, make prayers that whatever positive results can come from our positive efforts, that it benefits others, you know, and that it doesn't exhaust until there are no suffering sentient beings at all. Someone can recite Shanti Deva's prayers. But you have to rejoice in your merits. That gives it power. So, may all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, folks, thanks for sharing some time. Hi, Joni.
Hi, Venerable Tendron.
Good to see you. So, all right, well, have a meaningful week, and, stay well, stay safe, stay happy. I don't know. Good luck with all the challenges that we're experiencing right now. Bye.
Thank you,
Wait a minute.
everyone.
Next Saturday is the self-empathy class. So check that out on our webpage, and everything else continues on as usual. So now we can say goodbye.
Thank you, Tendron.
Bye, Venerable Tendron.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mary Ann.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.